You tuned in to the Soulful Conversations podcast, featuring a panel of life coaches and spiritual leaders from around the world discussing how to handle some of life's greatest challenges. We will be sharing stories of courage, hope, and inspiration with you, our faithful listeners, to live your happiest and most fulfilling life, full of purpose and passion for yourself, your families, and the world. We are here to be the change we wish to see. Let the conversation begin.
Welcome, everyone, to our 6th episode of the Soulful Conversations podcast. Today, we are super excited to have Robert Foster and Andrew Kap with us. We are going to be talking about free will and the power of choice. This is just a frank, open conversation that we're going to be having. So I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves. And since Andrew was here first, I'm going to let you go first. And then Robert, you can go. And then Stephanie, you can chime in and we'll start the conversation.
Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Dawn, for having me. Really excited to be here. I'm Andrew, otherwise known as that guy who wrote the last Law of Attraction book you'll ever need to read. And I've been known in that way for the past 2.5 years, but I've got a new book coming out called 3 Words I Used to Sell 100,000 Books, which is actually based on what I did to get that book to 100,000 copies in sales. So most people know me as someone who discusses Law of Attraction, but we'll see how confusing I can make things as I begin communicating with the world in another way now. But either way, really excited to be here and have this conversation with you.
Wow, thank you so much, Robert.
Hello, I'm Robert Foster. I'm in Rhode Island, the littlest state in the Union. So I am an inspirational speaker. I'm a podcast host. And just recently I made the tough decision to merge my fitness business with an Anytime Fitness brand because COVID was rough and I just got tired of the roller coaster. So I went to stability and things are going really, really well, but I'm ready to get back on my podcast scene.
Oh, good. Well, we want you back on the podcast scene.
Yes, I miss it.
Steph, well, thank you for joining us on our podcast.
My pleasure.
Steph.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Young, and I am a published author and a certified life coach, and also a host of the Soulful Conversation. Please forgive me, I've got a little bit of a cold going on here, so it might sound like I'm talking in a tunnel, but I'm very excited for our guest today, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So whoever is ready to first start it out, let's go.
Well, I'm going to just throw out a little bit here because I thought about this topic because one time a couple years ago my daughter just finished reading War and Peace, and she was talking about like free will, and she doesn't believe that we have free will. And so we got into kind of a little bit of heated exchange about it because I'm like, I feel bad that you don't think we have free will. I understand that things happen externally, but that's not what free will is. So I'm going to start with you, Robert. What do you think free will means? What does that mean to you?
To me, it means that you have the power to decide the direction of your life. So the person that you were speaking to, they were probably looking at it from like, there's rules. And yes, there are rules in place, there's laws in place, but you can still make the decision to do what you want to do. There may be consequences, there may be consequences for your decision, but you can still make that decision. It's like you're fully in control of the direction of your future.
Awesome. Yes. Andrew, what would you like to say about that?
Well said. Remind me not to let Robert go first because his answers are too good to live up to. Free will to me is basically your agency and capacity to proactively and reactively engage in life. And like Robert had mentioned, there's limits that are imposed on us on the outside world, but that does not change, at least in my view, our ability to still have an impact in one way, shape, or form. And the more we lean into that, the more impact we have for ourselves and others. And, even just having this conversation, free will to see things in the same way or a different way and express those views and, see what kind of impact that creates as well.
Stephanie, what do you think about that? Yes, I love it.
Definitely. Well, I would just like to bring up the fact that, all animals that are born, every single animal that's born onto this planet is born with their natural instincts. They know where to go get their food. Once they're, have their moms coddle them for 6 weeks or so, then they go out into the world with their own natural instincts. We as human beings, we were not given that. because I believe that, has to do with free will, and that we are here to create our lives. And so it's all a power of choice. I think that, we can step forward in growth, or we can step back into safety. And so I believe everything is going to boil down to a choice, and also whatever we create it to be is what we can have in our lives.
Yeah, we don't always we can't control the circumstances outside of ourselves. Like when COVID happened, I remember sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, I do not want to live in a world where I can't hug people and we have to be socially distanced from people. And I just remember thinking, I can't control that's happening, but I can show up as my best self through it. So when people are afraid or they're scared, I can, share a stupid joke or just, make them laugh or, lighten it a little bit, because I can't control external, but I can control internal. So I think that's the power of choice. And I just wanted to share this brief story. I've shared this a few times before. When I was in Sierra Leone several years ago, we did this large wharf cleanup, and we were handing out some money and some biscuits for the people, cookies for people that were helping us. And I remember this one lady, she didn't get any of the money and she didn't get any of the biscuits, but she wasn't helping either. But she'd come over and she started yelling at us. At this point, I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm like cleaning up a place that I don't even live, and I given away all my money. And I just remember thinking, are you even kidding me? But instead of saying what I was thinking first in my head, I was like, wait, I am here for love and kindness. I am here to be of help and to service to them. So I cannot respond that way. So my free will and my power of choice was I got to choose who Dawn wanted to be. And so I let her finish talking. I hugged her and I said, I'm so sorry we ran out. And then I walked away. So that was my choice. I could have reacted to the way she was talking to me, but instead I responded in the way that I wanted to be. So that was like my perfect demonstration of exhibiting free will and the power of choice. So do any of you have a story that you want to share about that? Something like that?
Come on, tons of stories.
Then you go, Mr. Well, you know what, Andrew, we promised him that.
So actually, I have a quick counterpoint that'll hopefully add a little flavor to the story Robert tells. Because while obviously I'm on board with free will, a little anecdote here is think of someone saying, okay, you have the choice between vanilla ice cream and chocolate ice cream, and here you have this power to choose, right? What if somebody never told you that there's also strawberry or also pistachio? I think part of the challenge of free will and really getting the most of it is sometimes we don't have all the information to act on. So there's even external influences on us that are guiding us in certain directions and on certain tracks that we are making choices within that we're sometimes even unaware of other possibilities. So part of this, the gift of free will and simultaneously the responsibility of it is acknowledging that we don't always have all the information to make the most of that free will, but that should not stop us from engaging anyway and getting the most out of it.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah. So Andrew's been on my show, 3 times, I want to say, right? 2 solo and a panel. And we've always had great conversations because our messages are very much in alignment. And so I want to piggyback off of something Dawn said earlier about, I don't remember exactly what you said, but it had to be about going towards success. And so I had a bad knee injury in 2009 where the doctors told me I'd never run or jump again. And so now, in given that information, I just could have taken that to heart and let that other person decide my future. And I decided, you know what? He doesn't get to decide that. I was like, you get to stitch my knee back together. I'll take care of the healing process. And through that process and through that mindset, I was able to walk again. I was able to run again. I was able to jump again. I was able to compete again. And I was able to become a champion again. And so too many times, when we're talking about free will, is we're letting other people put their limitations on us. So just because they can't do something, they try to tell you can't do something. Then if you take it to heart, that's on you. And to Andrew's point, you never know what the possibilities are. Like I never thought that I would be able to come all the way back and become a high jump champion again in my 40s, after in my early 30s being told you won't even run again. But I took the matters into my own hands and said, I'm going to seek out doctors and specialists who can put me on the path to where I could at least have a chance. So I went from never to 10% to 50% to 80% to you're going to make a full comeback. And I think it starts in just the free will of your own mind, just believing you can and then do it.
Just to throw a little shine your way real quick, Robert, to say nothing of an injury, even 100% healthy, there's a stigma that if you get into your 40s, you can't be at a world-class athletic level.
Yes.
So kudos to you, my friend. You kind of
you.
broke down a number of walls there and a number of preconceived limitations for people.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And that story it really demonstrates how powerful your mind is. You refused to believe what you were being told, and you made it happen the way you wanted it to. So you're amazing. That's why you're here.
Thank you.
Kudos to you.
What did
I
you?
would say, in 2012, my son committed suicide, and he was 25 years old. He was raised as an only child. Now, I had a daughter 17 years apart, but my son was pretty much raised as an only child. And of course, when I lost him in 2012, I at first wanted to die myself. All of the things were just going on in my mind, all of the guilt and the doubts and the what I should have, could have done. And so at first, I really had to go deep within, and I had to come to a choice. Either I'm going to give up or I'm going to give this all I got. And through my willpower, through my faith, through my strength and my friends and the love of my friends, I decided I'm going to give this all I got. So I choose to take my pain and my struggles and turn that into helping others also with their pain and struggles.
Thank you, Stephanie. That is very powerful. I mean, what you've said is very powerful. So I want to talk about maybe like another example, because I know Robert's got a ton, I've got a ton, we've all got a ton. Talk about another time where you realized that you had the free will instead of being a victim to circumstance and conditions. Robert, you want to go first?
I do. Yeah. So I'm not going to tell a personal story. I'm going to tell a story of some of my clients at the gym. So piggybacking off of what Stephanie just said, excuse me. So I lost my father in 2019, just before 2020 and everything went to hell. So he actually went at a good time, because had he survived into 2020, it would have been awful for him. He would have been alone. But one of my clients lost his son when his son was only 9. And so we were doing, on Monday holidays, we do big boot camp events called throwdowns. So we're doing a throwdown, there's people everywhere. And I noticed he's up against the wall with his head down. So I figured he was having a moment. And so I go over to him, I was like, B, what's going on? And, I could tell he's been, crying. And he's like, I just miss him. I just miss him so much. And so, like I said, I had my arm on him. I was like, I understand. It's like, trust me, I didn't lose a son. I was like, but, I lost my father. So hurt is hurt, pain is pain. I said, but you know what, though? I know that he's looking down at me. I was like, do you believe that your son can see you right now? And he's like, yeah. I was like, and what do you think is going through his mind? Seeing you up against this wall. And he's like, he probably doesn't like it. I said, no, he doesn't like it. So he wants to see his father crushing it in here. He wants to see his father being the man that he was raising him to be. I said, that's the person he wants to see. So right now, you're letting your emotions get the best of you. I said, so you got to take that pain and channel it into something positive. So we're going to get through the rest of this workout. We're going to make your son proud. And then you can have your moment on the car ride home. I was like, how does that sound? And he was like, wow. He's like, thank you for that. He's like, I never thought of it that way. So taking that pain, I mean, my whole podcast is about that. It's like taking pain and finding a way to turn it into power to help others who might not be there yet.
Stephanie, I know exactly what you're thinking. Say it.
Well, I was just thinking, everything's a choice, like even me, when I wanted to, I've said so many times, I could have chose to just lay in bed and put the cover over my head, say, I can't do this, or I can make the choice to get up and make the best of it. And that's just what I try to do, or I do. I don't try to, I do it. And, talking about willpower, sometimes our willpower is very, very strong. And then, like, say, for instance, you're going to start a diet. And this week you're doing good. Your mind is focused. You're going to lose 5 pounds this week. And so you're making a choice to stay on track with that. Well, say after the second week, you start getting hungry and your brain starts saying, why am I even doing this diet anyways? This is ridiculous. So your willpower will start to come down. And I think that, like we said, your willpower may weaken, but if you make that plan and make a choice and make a decision, then you'll stand on that even when your willpower seems to weaken a little bit.
Andrew, what would you like to add to that?
Well, it's so funny because each of you speaking is inspiring so much, so many thoughts. I mean, because even just, what Stephanie was just saying here about how delicate really the willpower is, and how you, Dawn, were just simultaneously talking about the power of the mind. And even, when Robert was telling a story about like how that guy was saying you can't do it, it's like, I'm not going to listen to that guy. And it's very interesting because I view the power of the mind and willpower and all these different pieces. I try to view them from a strategic standpoint, because I think, when bad things happen in life, they're not necessarily, and I mean, I'm saying this to everyone, they're not necessarily your fault, but they are your responsibility, in the sense that nobody else is going to dig you out for you. It doesn't matter whether it was your fault or not. Only you are at source of agency to do something about it. And I think back, and COVID is such an obvious theme only because it's a universal. I remember before COVID hit 2019, I made a really definitive choice to focus all of my energy into writing this book. And then when 2020 hit, and I had to make the choice of like, okay, well, I guess no social life. I'm just going to focus on business. Again, free will. I had this wonderful leveraging asset to really, to share, through myself and for the world. And I remember even last year looking back and thanking Andrew of 2019. And I do that very intentionally and very strategically, thanking an earlier version of myself who worked hard on something or went through something or overcame something or accomplished something or whatever it might be. I thank that person as a way and a method of gratitude to not only just, acknowledge that former version of myself, but also to even program myself and be inspired to be the version of Andrew that a future Andrew will then thank again. And again, that's whether, you're writing a book or you're going through a really painful life experience, or you're healing from an injury, or you're doing anything in your life in this moment in time that you kind of like want to remind yourself, be the version of you that your future self will thank you for making things happen and through getting through whatever that challenge or whatever that hurdle might have been.
Awesome.
Yes. Yes. And I think life is happening whether we create it or whether we just let it happen. We're either going to create it or it's going to happen by default. And making a choice, even not making a choice, is making a choice.
Yeah. We're always creating, but we don't even realize we're creating. So let's be intentional about our creation, or what we're creating, right? And that's where the free will comes into play, when we understand that we do get to create our lives. We don't get to create the circumstances and conditions that live amongst us, because that's out there. But internally, we have more power than we know. And I think tapping into that power is like one of the best things I learned, because again, I was living my life just, going along, like letting life happen to me, when I realized, hey, wait a minute, I've got some power here. I can create a life that's different than just what is happening around me. So what kind of steps or tips would you give for somebody, Stephanie, I'll start with you, to be more intentional and to exert your free will more?
I think that, first of all, I think it's a secret. I think it was a wonderful secret that I learned, that we can create our lives. That if we can just sit down and imagine, what would that look like? What would my perfect life look like? And that's going to be different for each person. But writing that down, putting that on paper, and then once a day, just kind of going over my mind of what that would look like, what that would feel like, what that would be like in my life. It raises my vibration. And then not only does it raise my vibration, it brings that into my life. Just like 4 years ago, I got the vision and the name of my book in my mind. I want you to write this book, and here's the name of the book, Suicide Through a Mother's Eyes. Okay, so things happened and life happened and other things was going on. But now this year in February, I published my book. And so it's just a matter of writing it down, stay true to that dream, and believe that it will happen, and believe that you are creating it exactly the way you want it.
Awesome. Robert?
So everyone's heard the term, what's your why, or find your why. You got to get to your why. And I always push back on that because everybody knows why. Like when people come into the gym, they know why they're there. They know why they went on the website, why they gave me their info, why they booked an appointment, why they waited for their appointment, and why they showed up for the appointment. I said, so it's like, you know why. You have to come to grips with the why. You have to come to grips with it. Like whether it's a fitness goal, whether it's a health goal, whether it's a performance-based goal, you got to get to the heart of why you want to do what you want to do. And then it's my job to help them take that why and then create a have to, right? Create a have to. Like, why are we out here now? We committed to it. This is something we have to do. You know, why do you go to work if you're still working, or you show up at your business? You have to. If you don't show up, the business is going to crumble. You're not going to make any money and you're going to lose everything you have. Right? So you got to take that why and find the have to. Like what is it going to take for you to have to get here 3 to 5 days a week, to have to drink enough water, to have to track your food, to have to make better fitness and better shopping choices? What is that thing? And I sit there and I hammer them in these consultations until I get that deep into it, to where they understand the why, but they realize that they have to do these steps to make it happen.
You know, I want to push back a little on that one, Robert, and I don't ever want to push back on you. But
feel free.
When my daughter was in 2nd grade, I remember picking her up from school one day and I said, Carrie, we have to go see Grandma and Grandpa. And her teacher, Mrs. Leininger, she said, you get to go see Grandma. You don't have to. And I just watched a video yesterday and they literally said that same thing. Change the word have to get to, because I think that changes the notion in your head. Like instead of saying, I should do something. Wait, what is the should? Instead of saying I should, I will. Change I have to I get to. Instead of saying I can't figure it out, or I can't, say I'll figure it out, or instead of I'm bad at something, I'm working on it. And I thought those were good tweaks in our language. So I really still, from, you know, however many years ago, Mrs. Leininger's words, you get to go see Grandma. So that made a huge difference. So sorry.
No, it's okay. I don't disagree with any of that. You just know my style. I'm just very direct. So like when I talk to people, I speak to them very direct. Again, the name of my show is Shut Up and Grind. You know, so like I'm just not a sugarcoater. So I tell people point blank, right between the eyes, what I feel they need to hear.
Do you make them cry?
I don't want to say I make them cry, but sometimes there are tears.
Free will, they make themselves cry.
I think that it's about self-discipline too, and what you were saying, Robert. You know, if you want to build your biceps, you don't just go to the gym one day and do 20 workouts and you got big biceps.
Yeah.
You have to commit to every day. I'm going to do this. I'm going to show up. And then by doing that, gradually they will build up, you know, this muscle.
Yes.
Like Robert's.
Yeah. Oh, these?
You know, we have to work at it every day. We have to commit to it. And whether we have to or we get to, it's still part of the process.
She's the Libra, so there you go. Andrew, I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, you know, I didn't say, I said before we hit the record button, I'm from New York, and I was always like I don't follow sports as much, but I was always a Yankee fan, and I was always a big Derek Jeter fan. And the thing about Derek Jeter that I really paid close attention to, that he even cited as a reason for success, although I'm paraphrasing him, is he only worried about the stuff that was within his control. You know, he couldn't control if an outfielder was placed in a certain position to field whatever he hit, or he can control if a pitcher screwed up because he was a shortstop. He worried on what he was within control, what he had agency for, and he was all the more successful for it. And with that in mind, you know, one thing, it sounds so ridiculously simple and easy, and it has to be experienced to really be understood. But with the understanding that you're only in control of what you're in control of, and therefore you shouldn't let yourself get overwhelmed, even just 5 minutes a day of engaging in some kind of gratitude exercise will work wonders, because And there's a slew of reasons why, and that'll take me an hour, and there's a slew of things that'll happen. But one example of what will happen is when you are focused on gratitude every single day, it will rewire your brain rather, where it won't even make a difference of whether you have to or you get to, because you'll be so in line with that thing that it'll just happen. You will write that first chapter of your next book. You will go to the gym. You will make a better shopping and eating decision. You will decide to go on that dating website or break up with that person. You'll just make these decisions and things will start to unfold for you in a much better way. And again, it seems so dramatic to say that. All I can say is try 5 minutes a day of gratitude without even worrying about what will happen or when it will happen, just for the sake of enjoying it, and observe what happens. And if you start seeing things that you like, recognize that and stick with it.
Thank you for that being grateful is key to everything. I mean, I just lost, I had 2 big, magical, beautiful dogs, Whitney and Lola. Everybody that knows me knows my dogs. And I lost my Whitney at the end of March, and I lost my Lola last week. And, as I'm like, crying and sad, I just keep clinging on to the gratitude. Like, I'm so grateful I got to have these beautiful creatures for all these years. Like, I'm grateful. And it doesn't take away the sadness, but it does a little bit. It lessens it a little bit, because I can focus on the magic that I had when I had them. So I love grateful. That's one of my words.
And they had you too. Like, another wonderful thing to be great. Like, I could tell just by the way you're speaking of them, they were very well cared for and they had a great life. That's no guarantee, unfortunately, but with you it was. So they had you, another wonderful thing to be grateful for.
Yes, and I think too, when we do come from grateful and we look at the things we're grateful for, then more of that comes into our life. I think that when you make a decision, like you said, whether we have to or we get to, when you make that decision, things show up, people show up. Things just, like you said, Andrew, fall into place that you don't have to worry about, do I have to or do I get to? It just starts falling into line. Perfect.
And piggyback on that too, like along the same lines, I always tell people opportunities are all around. Just if you're not focused on opportunities, you don't see them. So it's like, once you make that decision to say, you know what, this is what I'm going to do, then you start noticing these doors that were already there, waving for you to come through. But people get so blinded in the messiness of life. And we all have it, all life gets messy at some point. But when you lean into the messiness, you don't see the glaring opportunities right in front of your face.
So true.
Yeah. And, also there are, as you say that, Stephanie and I, when we're talking on the phone, sometimes, we'll see a bug or a bird or a butterfly or something. And Stephanie's always like, oh, look that up. What does that mean? And we do it all the time. But you know what? These things happen around us all the time. We don't pay attention to us. But there are signs and things that come to us at all times that we're just completely just walking down our path and we're just missing all of it. So when you're looking for the opportunities, you're going to find the opportunities.
Right.
Yeah. And sometimes they're going to seem weird. Like, again, I kind of hinted at it when we started and I introduced myself, and it was a bit, for me, I'm not sure how it was perceived, but internally it felt a bit awkward because this is the very first time I mentioned 2 books instead of 1. And more importantly, 2 topics. Like, I've spent the last 2.5 years being known as this guy that talks about law of attraction. People kept asking me, hey, how are you selling so many books? I didn't be like, well, that's off brand. I'm like, no, people are asking and I have a creative itch I'm going to scratch. So I wrote a book that's even longer than this one. And I'm rolling with it. And I figured, I don't even know where exactly things will head in that way. I mean, I'm certainly not abandoning this. I'm sticking with the YouTube channel and all those things. But why not be open to that possibility? And already people are really excited about it. So, the universe or whatever, or whoever you believe in, in my view, will continue to give you indicators that you're on the right track when you're really just following your gut and you're following your instincts and you're following what feels good to you.
Yeah.
And some the bad things that happen to us, we may think, like in my case, losing my son, I couldn't imagine what good could come out of that. But then stepping back and then looking back at it now, I see everything good that's come out of it. Even though I wouldn't trade him for the world, I can see the good out of it now.
And there's
I got to connect you. Yeah, I got to connect you, Stephanie. I had 2 guests on my show. One of them was most recently, she was a couple of months ago, but her son was murdered at the age of 29. And then another woman lost her son early as well. And just like, I just think you guys would all have a great conversation. Like, we got really deep into the stories, and yeah, it was powerful stuff.
Yes.
Well, again, it's the power of choice. Stephanie chooses every day to get up and be a light to the world. That's how I've known her for all the years that we've known each other. And if anybody I know, she could be the person that's mad and angry at the world and hurt and just, not doing anything productive, but she's turning her pain into helping others through it. So that's what we do. That's what we do with all of our struggles.
Yes, I'm just grateful for the 25 years that I got to have him in my life.
Yes.
Very grateful.
Yeah, and on the other side to that, my niece, this was in 2021, we lost her son. He was 2.
Oh.
He was 2. So things like that put it into perspective. Like with my dad, I was 45 when he passed. And I had a guest on my show a couple months after that, whose dad was killed in Vietnam while his mom was pregnant with him. So he never knew his dad a day in his life. So going back to gratitude, like, I'm just like very, very thankful that I had him. He was there for my sports games. He was there for chorus and the spelling bees and all of the athletic events. Like, he was there for everything. And even deep into my 30s and 40s, still giving me those tough love conversations. And, the whole shut up and grind mentality came from him. Like, he never let us make excuses. And he always had us out there practicing and performing to be our best. And, just having that for 45 years of my life, it's like, there's nothing I can be but grateful, because there are people whose fathers are either in jail or they died young, or they just straight up aren't in the picture. And like, I don't know what that pain feels like. So I can relish in the fact that he had a good ending. Like I said, he died right before 2020. There were 3 generations of us around him. We all got to hug him, kiss him, say goodbye. And then, of course, the sad part is we watched him pass. But, just having that moment for him, it's like, I'm not looking at it, how painful it was for me. That must have been awesome for him to actually be able to hug us all and just know exactly what's happening. Whereas on the other side, again, one of my clients, her father just dropped dead at 62 years old. No warning, no nothing. It's like, that's a different level of pain that fortunately I didn't have to experience. So gratitude is huge.
And there again, power of choice. When that story, I lost my dad when I was 32, and he died of a heart attack the day after Father's Day. And I remember I live in California. He lived in Ohio. And I remember just packing for his, to go to Ohio, but I was supposed to be there the following week. I was going to go visit the following Tuesday. So my last words to my dad were, "I love you, Dad," because it's Father's Day. I got to talk to him, and I got to say, I'll see you next week. And so, I remember packing, looking in my closet, just like sobbing, crying. And I remember saying, you know what, at least I got to have a dad. At least I had a wonderful dad, and I got to have him all these years, and he got to meet my daughters. And so I was focused on the gratitude, even within hours of losing him, because, I wasn't going to change anything by crying or not being grateful. Yes. So the gratitude is the thing that I think, and there's the power of choice again. There's where our free will comes in. So Andrew,
I was about to say, Dawn, it's very interesting. And I'm sure as I listen to you 3, I can guarantee you there are people listening to this that are being helped by one or all of you. And I find it interesting because when that first question comes up, do you have free will or not? At least my brain went in the direction primarily of physical action, the free will to physically engage and do something. And yet it extends so much further and so much deeper, where it's your freedom of choice in how you see things, in how you view them, and in how you perceive them, in a way that, where people can intentionally choose to focus their mind and focus their intentions and focus their perceptions in a direction that's just healthier for them, that's more beneficial, that's going to better position them for more happiness rather than more pain as they move forward in their life. So You're all just dropping these amazing examples and inspirations for people listening to remind them that it's both physical and mental and emotional and spiritual all at once.
Don't go anywhere. The Soulful Conversations will be right back after this important message.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Young, and I am a certified life coach, a published author, and an international speaker. My latest book that came out in February of this year is called Suicide Through a Mother's Eyes. It is my personal experience and story of tragically losing my 25-year-old son to suicide. It is the worst thing that a mother could ever go through. We are left with so much guilt and so many unanswered questions. I wanted to be the person that I needed at that time to help inspire and encourage any other mother to know that we're not alone and we will get through this together. The book is available on Amazon, and it's also in a Kindle version. So if you or anyone you know has lost someone to suicide, I recommend the book. Thank you.
You're all just dropping these amazing examples and inspirations for people listening to remind them that it's both physical and mental and emotional and spiritual all at once.
It is.
Yeah, but it's also going to go back to your beliefs, your belief system.
Yeah.
You know, if you believe that you are able to do this, you'll probably be able to do it. But if in your mind you believe that you can't, what is that quote? Either you believe that you can, or you believe that you can't.
You can, or you believe
You're right.
you can't. You're right.
Either way, you're right.
Yeah.
So it's back to the belief system as well, the perceptions, your willpower, all of it, your emotional, your spiritual, your physical. You know, because not only do we dream the dream, like you said, Andrew, we need to take one step in that direction. You know, if you want to fulfill something for your life, you can't just sit there and wish for it or hope that it'll happen. You have to get up and take action in that direction that you're trying to get to.
That's the tagline on my shirt. It says, "Some wish for it, we work for it." And I had the conversation just this morning with one of my gals talking about belief, because there's up here in New England, our tallest mountain is Mount Washington. It's 6,200 feet. I know out in Colorado there's 14,000 footers or whatever, but we work with what we have here. And so it's still a mean hike. Like the weather there has been voted like the worst on earth, like more so in the winter. But we hiked this mountain last August, and we went through all 4 seasons in this one hike. Like, that's how drastically the weather changes there. So anyways, so she was telling me that one of her sons went and hiked it, and she thought he was exaggerating about how bad the hike is. And so I was just sharing our experiences. I was like, oh no, he didn't sugarcoat anything. Like, it's really that bad. And now you're wondering, where am I going with this? And so I had said that I want to try to hike that mountain solo, you know, because I'm very competitive. And I have long legs and I move fast. So like every time I'm with other people, I just feel like I'm being held back. It's like, I want to go by myself. And she's like, yeah, but what if you roll your ankle? What if this? I said, what if none of that happens? You know, it's like, that's always my mentality. What if none of it happens? Like when people want to invest, what if I lose it all? What if you triple it? You know, it's like, belief is everything, because fear is the number one thing that holds people from moving forward. So I told her, I have a question. How fast can I get up and down that mountain? And the only way for me to get the answer is to go do it and just believe that I'm going to reach the peak and believe I'm going to get down safely. Like, no other thoughts enter my brain except accomplishing the task.
How
You know,
fast
Robert,
can you do it?
Right. What if it all goes right instead of what if I fail? What if right?
So Dawn, you were asking how fast you did it?
Yeah, I want to know.
Oh, I haven't done it yet. Like we just had this talk this morning.
Okay.
I got to tell you, Robert, it's really interesting, and I don't know if it's a parable or a metaphor or something else hiding in here, but you said something very interesting that stuck out to me, where the reason you want to do this alone is because, you know, your legs are long and you know you're strong, you've got endurance, and you've got these other people. Like, I imagine because of that, going up the mountain alone assuming there's no issues, it's actually better for you and less arduous because you're not stuck in these long conditions dragging through other people. And I think that's a wonderful, metaphor, whatever you might want to call it, for decisions we make in life, where we surround ourselves with the thoughts and opinions of other people and their limits and their doubts. And we let ourselves drag through something longer than we need to, where if we just say, no, I'm going to do this my way, whether it's writing a book or starting a business or doing whatever, that's where you let go of the pain and you let go of the false limitations that other people are imposing just because they're choosing through their own free will to see it that way.
Oh, I love that.
I'm from Texas, so I have a really hard head, and don't laugh at me. And this is just a saying. I don't even drink beer, but I'm always like, when someone tells me you can't do that, I'm like, hold my beer and watch this.
My favorite expression, hold my beer. I love it.
Just because, your limitations are on you. My belief is what I can do, not on what you believe I can do.
Exactly.
Yeah. A lot when I was writing my book, and then when I started doing videos for my YouTube channel, there was one person in particular who I used to know in my life, who I had in mind. It was very cynical, very negative. And I could see this person scoffing at some of the decisions I made, the way I phrased things or the way I acted, whatever it might be, scoffing and being, oh, that's not real, or always having a negative viewpoint. And what I did is I would think of when I was doing something and I would think of this person scoffing, I made it my reminder to amp things up even more. I'm like, oh, this person thinks this is silly or stupid. You know what? I'm going to go even further over the line on that, because that was my reminder. I made it my reminder to rather be held back by worrying that certain people are going to think that it's stupid. I'm like, no, I'm not only all in, I'm all in and then some. So thank you to this person for the reminder of their cynicism so that I know the other direction to go in way more easily.
So we're all stubborn here, all of us. Well, all of these stories remind me, when I went to Africa the first time, I didn't know anybody. I just met this woman and she wasn't even going to be there when I went, but I said, I'm still going to go. And I went, and I remember people before I was going, they're like, wait, you don't know anybody? What are you going to do there? People get kidnapped when they go there. You're going by yourself, like all of those things I was hearing. And not for a moment did any of that enter my subconscious, because I'm like, no, I feel like I want to do this. And I did it. And, my life drastically changed and shifted in the most beautiful way. But, nobody has to understand your dream but you. I think that's the powerful lesson from this. And this, again, that's all about free will. Like, we get to choose our lives and not be dictated by society standards, our families, friends. It doesn't matter, because this is our journey.
Yes. And don't live by fear, live by faith. Sometimes what you're fearful of is the thing you need to do. Sometimes the very thing that you need to help you grow. Because if you're not growing, you're staying comfortable, you're just staying safe. But it's when we face our fears and we accomplish those fears that we can actually grow into our greatest selves.
And that's where all the magic happens, is outside of our comfort zone. So when you do the scary thing, amazing things come from that. So, oh gosh.
COVID, that the whole COVID thing was reverted around fear. Everything was fear, fear, fear. I never once worried about getting COVID. I did get COVID in September, but I still knew that I would be okay. I can't live my life in fear.
I won't. I don't know how.
No.
So I'm going to let everybody say a final thought, and then Stephanie, you want to wrap up the very end?
Sure.
Okay, so Andrew, you went first. You were here first, so I'm gonna let you end first.
No, well, I mean, I want to express gratitude for having me on, and really, I want to say to everyone watching, pay attention to these people you just heard from, because I got to say, there's a lot of inspiring, really helpful stories and points here. And if you don't believe that you have free will, experiment with free will and see if you're right or not. And then you might be pleasantly surprised. That's my really go away thought. Again, I have free will to have gratitude for being here, and I'm so glad that I got to engage with you all today.
Andrew, thank you. Can you tell people where they can find you, find your book?
Yeah, I'll make it really easy. One link, awesomemarvelous.com. And that'll have a link for my current book, for my new book, and my YouTube channel. So whether you want to pull out your wallet, or you just want free content, you'll be taken care of over there. awesomemarvelous.com. Thank you for the opportunity to share that with people.
Thank you. I love that. awesomemarvelous.com. Robert, final words.
So first, didn't I tell you that Andrew's awesome?
You did, and he is.
Yeah, and so kind of how the whole law of attraction thing works. So you message me, well, you message the group saying if you know anyone else, and he just happened to be on, in the chat box. I haven't seen his name in months in the chat box. So when you asked and I saw him, I'm like, perfect, absolutely perfect. So just how things work out. But my biggest takeaway, going back to belief, and take action on that belief. So again, when in 2020, when the gyms were shut down, that's my sole source of income. I had just, had a couple months removed from losing my dad. Gym is shut down. I could have very easily put myself into a dark place, very easily. But instead, I had this microphone that I wasn't using. I had these lights. I had this green screen. I had graphics just sitting in my office collecting dust. And so I was like, all right, now is the time. Let's start this podcast. I don't know what we're going to talk about. I don't really have a structure. I don't know what platform I'm going to use. I'm like, you know what? Just turn on the phone and talk. And the first episode was a train wreck. I was all over the place. Couldn't put forth any coherent thoughts. There was no central theme. I didn't even have a name for it yet, but I'd started. And then each episode got better. And then I was able to have a graphic designer because the graphics weren't this. It was bad. Just something I made on Canva that was just bad. And I didn't really know how to find guests and like who's going to want to talk to me when these other big names are out there and all these celebrities have their podcasts, that lack of belief, that what's the word? I know you know the word.
Imposter syndrome?
Self-deprecation?
Self-limiting beliefs.
Oh.
That's the one. Yeah, so like I was starting to immerse in that, but then I figured out how to step into my greatness. Is face the fear. Don't worry about who you might make upset or who might disagree with you. It's like, this is my world, right? This is my world that I get to live in. These are the eyes that I get to see it through. These are the ears I get to listen to everything through. And I want to get on here and share my truths. And then once I was able to start finding guests, now I can't stop finding them. I got people messaging me constantly. Hey, I came across your podcast. People in India, came across my podcast and they want me to feature someone on the show. And so again, just start. If you got something that you're holding on to, just start. And then doors are going to open for you.
Thank you for saying that, because most people give up after they failed once or twice. So after your first episode that was a train wreck, you could have said, oh, this is not for me. I'm not going to do it. But thank goodness that you did it and you kept going.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And where can people find you, Robert, if they want to?
The site is under construction, but it's robertbfoster.com. Should be ready in about a week or so, and I'm all over social media as well. And my podcast link is shutupandgrind.me or on any of the podcast platforms.
And also on YouTube, right?
Actually, no, I scraped the YouTube because I'm gonna put short versions on there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Steph, closing words.
Yes, my voice. I just want to say thank you so much, Robert. Thank you for stepping into that and making that difference and showing people that it is doable. And if nothing else, just to watch you do it and give them inspiration to try, like you said, just get started. Andrew, thank you so much. It's so nice to meet you, and I can't wait to get not one, but both of your books.
Likewise, thank you so much. Thank you.
Congratulations on that, and thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and knowledge with us today. We love you so much. We love everybody. And I would just like to say, for anyone else who would like to be a guest on the Soulful Conversations, just reach out to us. We'd love to discuss different topics and stay on the part that we wish to be, the change that we wish to see. So thank you so much. And I hope you all have a blessed day.